Deepa Oja, Manager Privacy and Policy at DSCI, and I lead policy team and privacy team at DSCI. Though I'm coding it as two, but it's basically policy team. So what we do in the team is we have to work on every policy. We work as a bridge between the industry and the government stakeholders, and as and when any policy comes out from the government, we tend to look at it from the lens of cybersecurity and data protection particularly, raise our concerns which we get from the industry members and put it across to the government. So in that sense, we act as a mediator between these two things. We try to understand what is the logic with which certain laws has come out from the government and how industry can ensure compliances. So in that sense, we also help implement the provisions of the law, and also we are a team which creates an impact and formation of the law. So apart from data protection and privacy, the team is also currently working in emerging technologies like quantum, AI, deepfakes. So yeah, that's all that as a team in privacy and policy we do. But if I could talk to you about DSCI, it is a very big charter as an industry body and a think tank. We have a huge thing to do, and I don't think that I can summarize it within 2-3 minutes. We do thought leadership, we do policy advocacy, we do cybersecurity and privacy awareness among the masses, for youths, for women. We host events to create awareness. So yeah, that's a whole lot of charter that as DSCI we come into this space. Okay, so I'll start with the DPDP law itself because I have been part of DSCI, and DSCI has been very integral to the formation of data protection law which the country sees for now. So with the DPDP in place as of now and the trends which you asked me, obviously, AI is something that I can certainly vouch of, that the world is going to belong to AI, right? And the way AI developments has been taking place, I think all of us have to gear up to embrace innovation, but with the caution that we have to show demonstration to regulatory compliances. And when I say regulatory compliance, I mean that all the regulation, the trend that I personally believe is that all the regulations now coming from the government are in a way facilitating innovations, where they have kept a very fine balance between how industry can also do compliances and they can do innovation as well. So I think the technological trend is to find your niche, that how can you parallelly ensure innovation and technological development. And that's, I think, would be the requirement for the digitization journey that India is embracing on currently, and we can keep digitization and innovation going on parallelly together. To our best of understanding, industry is quite receptive of the law the way it has been drafted, right? The principle-based legislation, wherein government has left to the industry to do certain things. They haven't prescribed to a limit at what and how it has to be done. But at some points, industry do needs clarification, right? Like it's written that you have to do this. Say suppose verifiable parental consent, for instance. Industry is quite happy that it is left onto the industry to do certain things. But for some matters, they want better clarity from the government, but overall they are receptive of it. Another example that I can think of is significant data fiduciaries, right? Rules have come out with an additional obligations of significant data fiduciaries, but without clarifying who is going to be a significant data fiduciary. So in that sense, further clarity would better the position of industry's compliance, right? So I think, but overall, I think the law is quite recepted well by the industry at large. See, what Rule 9 and Section 10 is currently doing is obviously something in similar nature. I think the challenges that I personally see is two things. In Australia, they have talked about 16 years, where they have talked parental consent is required. Here, I think the problem lies with the verifiable parental consent, that how do you ensure verifiability of the consent, that the parent is actually giving the consent for a child, right? See, in a policy, that's the dichotomy that you have to see. You have to ensure safety of the child, but at the same time, you have to give that digital services to the child. How do you balance between the two? And I can bet on this. Countries across the globe are trying to figure out how to balance these two conflicting interests. So in that sense, Australia's law and what DPDP entails in Section 10 and Rule 9, it's going in the similar direction. They want to do this for children's protection and their online safety. If you ask me my perspective, obviously In reference to DPDPA, DPO is something I think organizations have to think about. CISOs are mainly what we understand in general term are for implementing information security controls, right? But when I talk about DPDPA, they are data protection controls. Data protection controls are obviously a part of information security controls, but a smaller gamut within the larger gamut. So if you are happen to be a significant data fiduciary, the law mandates that you have to have a DPO. But then even if you are a normal data fiduciary, you have to have a point of contact, right? So I think in that sense, role of a CISO and a DPO are going to work parallelly. It may happen since law has not given you any qualification that who can be a point of contact. Most of the organization may have that figure out, may choose to appoint their CISOs as a point of contact, right? So it will work eventually that how they are going to think about it. But certainly from a cybersecurity lens and Rule 6 particularly, which talks about reasonable security safeguards, I believe role of CISOs, CTOs is obviously going to be central when it comes to implementing and seeing reasonable security safeguards mentioned in the law. See, I'm a very pro-innovation person, okay? So AI is certainly going to change a lot of things. So AI can be a tool also to protect yourself from the harm and can be a means to do attack also. So it's up to the organizations or for individuals to see how they want to use and implement AI. We had just had a panel discussion which talked about how AI tools can mitigate cybersecurity threats. Similarly, AI can be used as a means of cyber threats, right? So it's just that you have to embrace now that AI is the real thing and implement and adopt AI into every aspect. What's the requirement is that we do understand the technicalities that is involved in AI. And I would here like to bring the role of DSCI that we are trying to do. We are running a certification course on AI governance program just to highlight people that what you think about that AI will take all of your data may not be correct at every instance, because these data trainings depends on attention or the tokenization or on the parameters on which our data is trained. So data may be different from attention. So in that sense, organizationally, we are looking deeper into what AI is, how it can be actually used as a means to protect yourself and enhance your data protection and cybersecurity standards. So yeah, I think you have to use it with a caution, but I can't say that you should avoid AI at all, because AI is the future. Yep. Responsible while using AI, and obviously AI also becoming responsible. That's the niche of it.